The stars above Earth changed on a Tuesday morning in March 2247. Jake Morrison was drinking his coffee on the bridge of the Liberty when the alarms started screaming. He dropped his cup and ran to the main screen. What he saw made his blood turn cold. Ships appeared in the sky. Not just one or two, but hundreds of them. They were huge and made of something that looked like crystal. The ships glowed with soft blue light and moved without making any sound. They hung above Earth like giant jewels in the darkness of space. Jake grabbed the communications panel. "All ships, battle stations, this is not a drill." His crew moved fast, but Jake knew it would not matter. These ships were unlike anything humans had ever built. On Earth, people stopped what they were doing and looked up. The crystal ships appeared over every major city at the same time. They floated above New York, London, Tokyo, and Mumbai. They appeared over the colonies on Mars and the Moon, too. Everywhere humans lived, the ships were there. Dr. Lisa Chang was in her office at the United Nations building when the ships arrived. She was a language expert who studied how to talk with alien species. For years she had prepared for this moment, but now that it was here, she felt afraid. She watched through her window as a massive ship positioned itself directly above Manhattan. Then the ships began to broadcast. Every screen on Earth showed the same image. Every radio played the same voice. Every device that could receive a signal carried the message. A being of pure light appeared on the screens. It looked almost human, but seemed to be made from starlight itself. The being's voice was beautiful and terrible at the same time. It spoke in every language at once, and somehow everyone understood. "People of Earth," the being said, "I am High Sovereign Calvex of the Zalthor Empire. We have watched your species for some time. You have grown enough to deserve our attention. We are here to guide you, to protect you, and to bring you into the greater family of civilized worlds." Lisa's hands shook as she recorded every word. The being spoke like a parent talking to a child. There was kindness in the voice, but also something else, something that expected obedience. "For millions of years, we have helped younger species find their way among the stars," Calvex continued. "We have brought peace to thousands of worlds. We have ended wars, cured diseases, and lifted civilizations from darkness into light. Now we offer this same gift to humanity." Jake watched from the Liberty. He did not like what he was hearing. The words sounded good, but something felt wrong. "Sir," his second officer said quietly, "should we respond?" Before Jake could answer, Admiral Ben Torres's face appeared on a smaller screen. Torres was the head of Earth's combined fleet. He was old, experienced, and looked very worried. "All ships, hold your positions. Do not fire. I repeat, do not engage." Jake wanted to argue, but he trusted Torres. The Admiral had fought in 3 wars. If he said to wait, there was a good reason. On the main screen, Calvex was still speaking. "We ask only for your cooperation. Accept our guidance. Learn from us. In time, you will understand that we are not invaders. We are saviors. We are gods, and we have come to shepherd you into a new age." Gods. The word hung in the air like smoke. Jake felt anger rising in his chest. No one had the right to call themselves gods. Not even beings who could cross the stars. In the United Nations, Senator Amy Crawford stood up during an emergency session. "We should listen to them," she said. "Look at their technology. Look at their power. Maybe they really can help us. Maybe this is the greatest moment in human history." Other senators disagreed. Arguments broke out. Some wanted to fight, others wanted to negotiate. Some, like Amy, wanted to welcome the Zalthor with open arms. Lisa watched the debates on her computer while studying the Zalthor broadcast. She noticed something strange. The being's words were almost too perfect. Every phrase was designed to sound reasonable and kind. But underneath, there was a pattern. The Zalthor spoke about guidance and protection, but they never once asked what humans wanted. Back in space, Jake made a decision. He ordered his ship to move closer to the Zalthor vessels. "I want a better look at them," he told his crew. The Liberty moved forward slowly, weapons powered down to show peaceful intent. The crystal ships did not react at first. The Liberty got within 500 meters of the nearest Zalthor vessel. Jake could see now that the ship was covered in symbols that glowed and shifted. It was beautiful and frightening. Then Admiral Torres's voice cut through the silence. "Liberty, fall back immediately. Morrison, what are you doing?" "Just looking, sir," Jake replied. "I want to see what we're dealing with." At that moment, 5 more Earth defense ships moved forward. They had the same idea as Jake. They wanted to get closer, to understand these visitors who called themselves gods. The Zalthor response was instant and overwhelming. Every ship that had moved forward simply stopped. Their engines died, their lights went dark, their weapon systems shut down completely. The ships just floated in space, dead and silent. Jake felt the Liberty die around him. The bridge went black. Life support switched to emergency backup. His crew sat in shocked silence. Then the lights came back on. All the systems restarted at once. But everyone understood the message clearly. The Zalthor could turn off human technology with a thought. They could kill every ship in space without firing a single shot. Calvex appeared on the screens again. This time he was not smiling. "That was a demonstration, not an attack. We do not wish to harm you, but you must understand your place. We are your superiors in every way. Resistance is pointless. Accept our help and you will thrive. Refuse, and you will only bring suffering upon yourselves." The transmission ended. Jake sat in his chair, his hands gripping the armrests. Around Earth, the crystal ships waited. They did not attack. They did not need to. They had already won. That night, the United Earth Council met for 18 hours straight. The debate was fierce. Some wanted to fight, no matter the cost. Others argued that fighting was suicide. In the end, they voted. The result was close, but clear. Humanity would accept the Zalthor terms. They would submit to the guidance of these self-proclaimed gods. They would give up their weapons, their freedom, and their pride. When Lisa heard the news, she went to her window and looked up at the crystal ship floating above the city. It glowed peacefully in the darkness. She wondered what price humanity would pay for this peace. Deep in her heart, she knew the answer. They would pay everything. 6 months passed, and Earth was not the same place anymore. The Zalthor walked among humans now, appearing in their glowing forms at government buildings and public squares. They performed what they called miracles. A sick child would be healed with a touch. A collapsed building would be rebuilt in minutes. Food appeared where there was hunger. Some humans loved them for this. They built temples and held ceremonies. They called the Zalthor saviors and protectors. They forgot that freedom once mattered more than safety. But others did not forget. Jake Morrison was one of them. The military had forced him to retire after Earth surrendered. They said his actions in space had been reckless. They said he did not understand the new reality. Jake understood it perfectly well. That was why he could not accept it. He met with others who felt the same way. They gathered in secret in basements and abandoned buildings. They called themselves the Resistance, though they had no weapons and no plan. They only had anger and determination. Lisa Chang attended one of these meetings. Officially, she worked as a liaison between humans and the Zalthor. She helped translate and explained human culture to the aliens. But secretly, she gathered information. She studied everything about the Zalthor, looking for weaknesses. "They are not gods," Lisa told the group one night. About 30 people sat in a dark warehouse listening carefully. "I have been studying their language and their behavior. They are just an old species with advanced technology. Everything they do can be explained by science, not magic." "Tell that to the millions who worship them," someone said bitterly. Half the planet thinks they are divine. Jake stood up. His face was hard and tired. Then we need to show everyone the truth. We need to prove that these gods can bleed. How? Another person asked. We have no weapons. They shut down our entire fleet without even trying. What can we do? Lisa pulled out a small data chip. I have been copying files from the Zalthor databases. They think I am too simple to understand their security systems. They are wrong. She plugged the chip into a portable screen. Look at this. The screen showed images of other planets, beautiful worlds with cities and forests. But then the images changed. The cities were destroyed. The forests were burned. The planets were dead and empty. These are worlds that refuse to submit, Lisa explained. Her voice was quiet but steady. The Zalthor offered them the same choice they offered us. These species said no. The Zalthor killed every living thing on their planets. The room went silent. Everyone stared at the images of dead worlds. There is more, Lisa continued. I found records of civilizations that did accept Zalthor rule. They survived, but look what happened to them. She showed new images. Alien beings that looked peaceful and content, but their eyes were empty. Their cities all looked the same. Their art, their music, their culture had no variety or life in it. The Zalthor do not just rule you, Lisa said. They erase you. Slowly, over generations, they replace your culture with theirs. They take away everything that makes you unique. In 100 years, humanity will not exist anymore. There will only be another species that serves the Zalthor and calls them gods. Jake felt sick, but he also felt something else. Purpose. We need to spread this information. Everyone needs to see what we are looking at. If we do that, the Zalthor will know I have been stealing data, Lisa said. They will kill me. Maybe they will kill all of us. Then we better make it count, Jake replied. Over the next weeks, the resistance grew. Lisa recruited an engineer named Sophie Martinez. Sophie was brilliant with technology. She started studying Zalthor devices that Lisa smuggled out of their facilities. Sophie took them apart carefully, learning how they worked. One day, Sophie made a breakthrough. She created a small device that could disrupt Zalthor energy shields for just a few seconds. It was not much, but it proved something important. The gods could be hurt. We need to test it, Sophie said, holding up the device. It was no bigger than a phone. But testing it means attacking a Zalthor. If we fail, they will destroy us. And if we do nothing, they destroy us slowly, Jake said. I say we take the chance. But before they could plan an attack, something unexpected happened. A Zalthor made contact with Lisa. His name was Zalvor, and he was different from the others. He did not glow as brightly. He did not speak with the same confidence. Zalvor asked to meet Lisa alone. She was terrified it was a trap, but she went anyway. They met in a park at midnight. The Zalthor stood in the shadows. His light dimmed almost to nothing. I need to tell you something, Zalvor said. His voice sounded tired. Something my people do not want you to know. Lisa recorded everything on a hidden device. I am listening. We were like you once, Zalvor began. Thousands of years ago, the Zalthor were curious and creative. We built ships and explored space. We made art and music. We argued and dreamed and grew. He paused, his light flickering. Then we discovered how to manipulate dark energy. It gave us incredible power. We could live forever. We could shape matter with our minds. We became like gods. What happened? Lisa asked. We stopped growing, Zalvor said simply. When you have infinite power, you have no reason to struggle. When you have no reason to struggle, you stop creating new things. Our civilization became frozen. For thousands of years, we have made nothing new. We have had no new ideas. We are immortal, but we are dead inside. Lisa felt a strange pity for this being. Why are you telling me this? Because we survive by stealing, Zalvor admitted. We find younger species and we harvest their innovations. We take their technology, their art, their ideas. We drain them of creativity, and then we move on. We have done this to hundreds of species. I have watched it happen over and over, and I am tired of it. Then help us stop it, Lisa said. Zalvor shook his head. If my people know I spoke with you, they will kill me. I am already taking a great risk, but I can give you information, database access codes, weaknesses in our ships and weapons, the locations of important facilities. He held out a small crystal. Everything is here. Lisa took it carefully. Why help us? What do you gain? Maybe nothing, Zalvor said. Maybe I will die for this. But I remember what my people were before we became gods. I remember when we valued freedom and curiosity. If humanity can defeat us, perhaps we will remember too. Perhaps we will finally be allowed to die and make room for something better. The Zalthor faded into the darkness and was gone. Lisa stood alone in the park, holding the crystal. Her hands were shaking. She had been looking for a weapon to fight gods. Instead, she found proof that gods were just people who had forgotten how to be human. She brought the crystal to Jake and Sophie. They spent days going through the information. It was all there. Zalthor ship designs, weaknesses in their shields, communication frequencies, the location of every Zalthor facility in the solar system. This is it, Jake said, looking at the data. This is how we fight back. Sophie was already making plans. I can build more disruptors. Better ones. If we can get weapons past their shields, we can hurt them. We need allies, Lisa added. We cannot do this alone. We need fleet officers, soldiers, scientists. We need people with resources and connections. Jake nodded. I know someone who might help. Someone who has been pretending to cooperate with the Zalthor but might be waiting for a chance to fight back. He was thinking of Admiral Ben Torres. The old admiral had seemed to accept Zalthor rule without protest. But Jake knew Torres better than that. The admiral was patient and smart. If anyone was playing a long game, it was him. The resistance was about to take a dangerous step. They were going to ask Earth's highest military officer to commit treason. If Torres refused or reported them, everything would be over. But if he agreed, they might actually have a chance to win. 1 year after the Zalthor arrived, Jake Morrison walked into Admiral Ben Torres's office. The old admiral sat behind his desk, looking at reports on a screen. He did not seem surprised to see Jake. I wondered when you would come, Torres said quietly. He touched a button on his desk. I just activated a signal jammer. We have 5 minutes before security notices. Talk fast. Jake felt relief wash over him. Torres was already suspicious of being watched. That was a good sign. We have information about the Zalthor. Information they do not want us to have. And we have a plan to fight back. Torres listened as Jake explained everything. The dead worlds. The harvested civilizations. Zalvor's confession. The weaknesses in Zalthor technology. When Jake finished, the admiral sat in silence for a long moment. I knew, Torres finally said. Not the details, but I knew something was wrong. The Zalthor smiled too much. They promised too much. Gods who need to convince you they are gods probably are not gods at all. He stood up and walked to his window. I have been cooperating to buy us time. I hoped humanity would find a way to resist. I'm glad I was right. We need your help, Jake said. We need ships, weapons, and people we can trust. Torres turned around. His eyes were hard. You understand what you are asking? If we fight and lose, they will destroy Earth. They will kill billions of people. If we do not fight, we lose anyway, Jake replied, just slower and quieter. The admiral nodded. Then we fight. I will bring you officers I trust. People who have been hiding weapons and ships in secret. We will need months to prepare, maybe longer. We might not have that long, Jake said. The Zalthor are starting their cultural integration program. They are rewriting our history books. They are closing our military academies. Every day we wait, we get weaker. Then we work fast, Torres said. The jammer beeped. Their time was up. Go. I will contact you through secure channels. Over the following months, the resistance grew into something real. Colonel Emma Price revealed that she had hidden an entire arsenal in an abandoned military base in Alaska. Captain Ryan Mitchell brought his Special Forces team, soldiers who had been training in secret. Dr. Nathan Cole, a physicist, started developing new weapons using Zalthor technology that Sophie had reverse-engineered. But the Zalthor were not blind to the changing mood. High Sovereign Calvex appeared more frequently on broadcasts. His messages became firmer and less friendly. "We have been patient with humanity," Calvex said during one broadcast. "We have forgiven your doubts and your questions, but patience has limits. You must accept your place in our empire. Resistance will only bring pain." The turning point came in New Chicago. A group of humans organized a peaceful protest. They marched through the streets carrying signs that said freedom, not protection, and we are not children. Thousands of people joined them. The Zalthor sent enforcers to stop the protest. These were not the glowing beings of light that humans usually saw. These were soldiers in armor that looked like dark crystal. They did not speak. They did not negotiate. They simply started killing people. The massacre lasted 10 minutes. 300 humans died in the street. The Zalthor broadcast the event as a warning. They wanted everyone to see what happened to those who disobeyed. But the plan failed. Instead of scaring people into obedience, the massacre made them angry. Videos of the killings spread across Earth and all the colonies. People who had been unsure about the Zalthor now saw the truth. These were not benevolent gods. They were tyrants who killed anyone who questioned them. Support for the resistance exploded overnight. People volunteered in secret. They brought money, supplies, and information. Factory workers sabotaged Zalthor equipment. Government employees leaked documents. Ordinary people became heroes in small, quiet ways. Lisa continued her work as a liaison, but now she had help. Other humans in the Zalthor administration were also spies for the resistance. They formed a network that passed information through codes and hidden messages. The Zalthor never suspected that their trusted servants were planning their downfall. Sophie worked day and night in a hidden laboratory in the asteroid belt. She and her team built hundreds of shield disruptors. They were small enough to attach to missiles and torpedoes. For the first time, human weapons could hurt Zalthor ships. Admiral Torres carefully rebuilt Earth's fleet. The Zalthor had forced humanity to destroy most of their warships, but Torres had hidden key vessels in remote locations. He brought them back slowly, retrofitting them with new technology. The ships looked old and harmless, but they were actually more dangerous than ever. Jake took command of his ship again. The Liberty had been scheduled for destruction, but Torres had secretly moved it to a repair facility. Jake's crew came back one by one, pretending to have civilian jobs while actually preparing for war. Ryan Mitchell trained his soldiers for a specific mission. They would attack the main Zalthor command center in Geneva when the time came. It was a suicide mission, but every soldier volunteered anyway. They knew what was at stake. Zalvor continued to help from the shadows. He provided updated codes and warned the resistance about Zalthor security sweeps, but he always refused to meet in person. "If they catch me, you lose your source of information," he told Lisa through encrypted messages. "I am more useful hidden than exposed." The plan took shape slowly. They would call it Operation Prometheus, named after the ancient myth of the Titan who stole fire from the gods to give to humans. The operation would involve simultaneous attacks across the entire solar system. At exactly the same time, resistance forces would strike every major Zalthor facility. They would destroy communications arrays, weapons platforms, and supply depots. They would broadcast the truth about the Zalthor to everyone who could receive it. Most importantly, they would prove that the gods could be fought and beaten. The night before the attack, Jake could not sleep. He walked through the Liberty, checking systems and talking with his crew. Everyone was nervous but determined. They knew many of them would die tomorrow. But they also knew that staying silent was its own kind of death. Lisa completed her final task. She had assembled every piece of evidence about the Zalthor into a single massive file. The dead worlds, the destroyed civilizations, the lies and manipulations, Zalvor's testimony. All of it would be broadcast the moment the attack began. Humanity would see what their gods really were. Sophie checked her disruptors one last time. Each one had been tested and retested. They would work. She was certain of that. The question was whether they would work well enough. Admiral Torres sent final orders to his fleet. 70 ships were ready to fight. It was not nearly enough to match the Zalthor fleet in open battle. But this would not be an open battle. This would be a surprise attack against targets the Zalthor thought were safe. Speed and coordination would matter more than numbers. Emma Price loaded her ships with weapons and ammunition. She would lead the attack on Mars, where the Zalthor had their largest garrison outside of Earth. Her force was mostly mining vessels and cargo ships converted into makeshift warships. They looked ridiculous compared to Zalthor cruisers, but they were crewed by people who had nothing left to lose. Ryan gathered his team in a transport ship. They reviewed the plan for the 100th time. Break into the Geneva Command Center. Plant explosives. Get out before they detonate. Simple on paper. Nearly impossible in reality. No one mentioned the obvious fact that they probably would not survive. Everyone understood that already. As dawn approached, the Resistance made their final preparations. Across human space, thousands of people checked weapons, started engines, and said quiet prayers. Some were soldiers, some were civilians, some were young, some were old, but they all shared one belief: freedom was worth dying for. Jake stood on the bridge of the Liberty and looked at Earth through the main screen. His home world was beautiful and fragile in the darkness. The Zalthor ships hung above it like jewels, confident and unconcerned. They had no idea what was coming. Admiral Torres sent the final message. It was just 2 words, but they carried the weight of humanity's hope and rage. Begin, Prometheus. The war for Earth had started. The attack began at exactly 4 in the morning, Greenwich Mean Time. All across the solar system, human ships emerged from hiding and opened fire. The Zalthor had not expected resistance. They certainly had not expected coordinated military action. For the first few minutes, they were caught completely off guard. Jake Morrison's Liberty fired first. They had positioned themselves near a Zalthor communications relay hidden behind the moon. The ship's targeting computer locked on, and Jake gave the order. Fire everything! Missiles streaked through space, each one carrying Sophie's shield disruptors. The devices activated at the last second, creating brief windows in the Zalthor shields. Human railguns followed, firing solid metal slugs at incredible speeds. The relay exploded in a burst of blue light. "First blood," Jake said quietly. His crew cheered, but Jake kept his face serious. That was the easy one. Now comes the hard part. Across Earth, Lisa's broadcast began. Every screen on the planet showed the same images. Dead worlds destroyed by the Zalthor. Civilizations erased from existence. Zalvor's testimony played in his own voice, telling the truth about the species that claimed to be gods. "They are not divine," Lisa's recorded voice said. "They are parasites. They survive by draining younger civilizations of everything that makes them special. They have come to do the same to us. But we are fighting back. Right now, at this very moment, humans are striking against their oppressors. The gods are bleeding. And gods who bleed are not gods at all. The broadcast reached every human colony at the same time. On Mars, people watched and understood. On the Moon, workers stopped what they were doing and looked up at the Zalthor garrison above them. In the asteroid belt, miners who had been quietly angry for months finally saw proof that they were not alone. High Sovereign Calvex appeared on broadcasts minutes later, trying to counter Lisa's message. But his words fell flat. People had seen the evidence. They had seen the massacres and the lies. Calvex's voice, which once sounded wise and kind, now just sounded desperate. Above Earth, Admiral Torres led the main fleet against a Zalthor destroyer that had been patrolling near the orbital shipyards. 20 human ships attacked as one unit. Their missiles hit the destroyer's shields at the exact same moment, creating multiple disruption points. The Zalthor shields flickered and failed for just 3 seconds. It was enough. Human railguns and lasers tore into the destroyer's hull. The crystal structure cracked and shattered. Atmosphere vented into space. The destroyer tried to return fire, but its weapon systems were damaged. Torres's flagship, the Independence, delivered the final blow. The destroyer broke apart, its pieces tumbling toward Earth's atmosphere where they would burn up. A human fleet had destroyed a Zalthor warship. The news spread instantly. On every human vessel, crews cheered and cried. They had proven that the enemy could be beaten. But the Zalthor were recovering from their surprise. They began coordinating their response. More ships moved to defend key facilities. Ground forces mobilized to hunt down resistance cells. High Sovereign Calvex personally took command from his flagship, the Eternal Throne. On Mars, Emma Price led her makeshift fleet against the Zalthor garrison. Her ships were mining vessels and cargo haulers armed with welded-on weapons and crude armor. They looked ridiculous next to the elegant Zalthor cruisers. "Remember," Emma told her crews over the communication channel, "we are not trying to win a fair fight. We are trying to hurt them badly enough that they remember us forever. Hit fast, hit hard, and do not stop until your ship is dead or they are." Her fleet charged straight at the garrison. The Zalthor fired first, destroying 3 human ships immediately. But Emma's fleet did not slow down or retreat. They kept coming, firing mining lasers and launching improvised missiles. Several ships rammed directly into Zalthor vessels, their crews sacrificing themselves to damage the enemy. The battle over Mars was brutal and desperate. Emma's ship took heavy damage. Fire spread through the lower decks, and life support was failing. But she kept fighting, using her crippled vessel as a weapon. She crashed into a Zalthor supply depot, detonating her remaining ammunition as she hit. The explosion destroyed the depot and 3 nearby ships. Emma survived, barely. Her crew pulled her from the wreckage, burned and bleeding. But as medical teams worked on her, she smiled. The Zalthor garrison on Mars was in ruins. The gods had learned that even ordinary people with ordinary ships could hurt them if they were brave enough. On Earth, Ryan Mitchell and his team reached the Geneva Command Center. They moved through the building like shadows, avoiding security and disabling cameras. The Zalthor had built their headquarters in what used to be a human government building. They felt safe there, in the heart of Earth's diplomatic quarter. They should not have felt safe. Ryan's team planted explosives throughout the building's support structure. They worked quickly and efficiently, knowing they had maybe 10 minutes before someone noticed them. They were on their way out when alarms started screaming. Zalthor soldiers appeared, blocking the exits. Ryan's team had to fight their way through. Half his soldiers died in the corridors, buying time for the others to escape. Ryan himself was shot twice, but he kept moving, helping carry a wounded teammate. They made it outside just as the explosives detonated. The command center collapsed in a cloud of dust and debris. Dozens of Zalthor died in the rubble, including several high-ranking officials. Ryan and his surviving team members disappeared into the city before reinforcements arrived. The damage was being done. The Zalthor were hurt and angry, but they were also still vastly more powerful than humanity. High Sovereign Calvex ordered a full response. He would personally lead the counterattack and crush the human resistance once and for all. The Eternal Throne moved into Earth orbit. It was the largest ship humanity had ever seen. More like a floating city than a vessel. Its weapons could destroy continents. Its shields could withstand any attack humans could launch. Calvex intended to make an example of Earth. He would demonstrate the price of defying gods. "Attention, humans!" Calvex broadcast from his throne room. His voice was cold and filled with rage. "You have made a terrible mistake. You have raised your hands against your superiors. You have spilled sacred blood. For this crime, you will suffer beyond measure. I will burn your cities. I will shatter your fleets. I will make you beg for the mercy you rejected." Jake Morrison received the broadcast on the Liberty. He looked at his crew, saw the fear in their eyes, and made a decision. Plot a course to intercept the Eternal Throne, maximum speed. His crew stared at him. "Sir," the navigation officer said carefully, "that ship could destroy us with one shot. We would not even scratch its shields." "I know," Jake said, "but someone has to try. And maybe we will buy enough time for others to evacuate." Admiral Torres called Jake on a private channel. "Morrison, you do not have to do this. Let me handle Calvex." "With respect, sir, your flagship is crippled," Jake replied. The Independence had taken severe damage in the earlier battle. "The Liberty is still operational, and Sophie gave me something special." He held up a device that looked like a large battery. "One massive shield disruptor, big enough to take down the Eternal Throne's defenses for maybe 30 seconds. But I have to get close to use it. Very close." Torres was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "The entire human fleet will support you. We will get you close. After that, make every shot count." Sophie's voice came over another channel. "Jake, that disruptor is experimental. I do not know if it will work on a ship that large." "Then we will find out together," Jake said. "You are on the Liberty, remember? You are coming with me." Sophie laughed, though it sounded more like crying. "I guess I am. Let me make sure the device is ready." The Liberty turned toward Earth, accelerating to attack speed. Behind them, every operational human ship followed. They knew this was probably the last battle. If they failed here, the war was over. The Zalthor would destroy Earth and hunt down every remaining human in the solar system. But if they succeeded, if they could somehow bring down the Eternal Throne and kill High Sovereign Calvex, the Zalthor Empire might collapse. Without their leader and their belief in their own invincibility, they could be defeated. It was a desperate plan, with almost no chance of success. But humanity had always been good at desperate plans. They had survived ice ages and plagues. They had crossed oceans in wooden ships and walked on the moon with primitive computers. They did not give up when the odds were bad. They fought harder. Jake Morrison looked at Earth on his main screen one last time. His daughter was down there somewhere, hiding in a shelter. He had written her a letter explaining why he was doing this. He hoped she would understand someday. "All ships," Admiral Torres broadcast to the fleet, "this is it. This is the moment that decides everything. Fight well, fight bravely, and remember, we are not just fighting for ourselves. We are fighting for every species the Zalthor have destroyed. We are fighting for everyone they will destroy in the future if we fail. Show them what humans are made of." The fleet moved into attack formation. Ahead of them, the Eternal Throne waited like a small moon made of crystal and light. It was beautiful and terrible and utterly confident. The gods were about to learn a hard lesson. Humans did not kneel, not even to gods. The human fleet approached the Eternal Throne like insects flying toward a star. The Zalthor flagship was enormous, dwarfing every ship humanity had brought to the battle. Its weapons lit up, preparing to fire. Around it, a dozen Zalthor escort vessels moved into defensive positions. "All ships, scatter formation," Admiral Torres ordered. "Make them work for every kill." The human fleet broke apart, ships moving in different directions. The Zalthor fired, and 3 human vessels exploded instantly, but the rest kept coming, firing missiles and railgun rounds. Most shots bounced harmlessly off the Eternal Throne's shields. But they were not trying to damage it yet. They were trying to distract it. Jake Morrison pushed the Liberty toward the flagship at maximum speed. "Sophie, how close do we need to be?" Sophie Martinez was strapped into a seat next to the large disruptor device, checking its power levels. 300 meters. Any further and the disruptor will not be strong enough." 300 meters, Jake repeated. That was suicide range. At that distance, even the Eternal Throne's point defense weapons would tear them apart. "Understood. Everyone not essential to flight operations, get to the escape pods now." Several crew members started to leave, but most stayed. They had come this far together. They would see it through to the end. The battle was chaos. Human ships darted around Zalthor vessels, taking damage but refusing to retreat. Emma Price arrived from Mars with the survivors of her fleet. Her ships were barely functional, but they added their weapons to the fight. Every shot helped, even if it only kept the enemy busy for a few more seconds. Admiral Torres's Independence fired its remaining missiles at an escort cruiser. The missiles hit the cruiser's engines, crippling it, but the effort cost Torres his last weapons. The Independence was now defenseless. Torres ordered his crew to abandon ship while he stayed at the helm, manually piloting to ram another Zalthor vessel if he got the chance. Inside the Eternal Throne, High Sovereign Calvex watched the battle with growing frustration. These humans refused to accept their fate. They kept fighting even when fighting was clearly hopeless. It made no sense. Any logical species would have surrendered by now. "Destroy them all," Calvex ordered his crew. "I want every human ship turned to dust. Show them what happens when mortals challenge gods." But as he spoke, something unexpected happened. The Eternal Throne's main weapon system went offline. Alarms started blaring throughout the ship. Calvex turned to his officers. "What is happening?" "Someone is sabotaging our systems from inside," an officer reported. "It is coming from the engineering section." Calvex understood immediately. Zalvor. He had suspected the engineer of having doubts, but he had never thought Zalvor would actually betray his own people. "Kill him and restore the weapons." In the engineering section, Zalvor worked frantically at a control panel. He had waited for this moment, for when he could do the most damage. Now he was shutting down every system he could access. He knew he would die for this. He had accepted that long ago. But if his death bought humans a few more minutes to fight, it would be worth it. Zalthor soldiers burst into the engineering section and opened fire. Zalvor's body fell, his light fading. But before he died, he sent one final message to Lisa Chang. It was just 3 words. "Remember us kindly." Lisa received the message on Earth, where she was coordinating information warfare. Tears ran down her face. Zalvor had been the enemy, but he had also been brave and good. She would make sure humans remembered that not all Zalthor were monsters. The Eternal Throne's weapons came back online, but the sabotage had bought precious time. The Liberty was now within 500 meters of the flagship. Jake could see the crystal surface of the massive ship, see the glow of its power systems. It was the most beautiful and terrifying thing he had ever seen. 400 meters, the navigation officer called out. "The throne is locking weapons on us." "Keep going," Jake said. His hands gripped the armrests of his chair. "Sophie, get ready." "The disruptor is charged," Sophie said. Her voice was steady despite the fear she felt. 300 meters, and I can activate it." The Eternal Throne fired its point defense cannons. The Liberty shook as explosions tore through the hull. Warning lights flashed red across every console. The shield generators exploded, and the engine room reported multiple fires. "We are not going to make it," the officer said. "Yes, we are," Jake insisted. He manually took control of the ship, using emergency thrusters to keep them on course. The Liberty was dying around them, but they just needed a few more seconds. Emma Price's damaged ship appeared beside the Liberty, putting itself between Jake's vessel and the Eternal Throne's guns. Emma's ship was hit by a massive blast that should have destroyed it, but it held together just long enough to shield the Liberty from the worst of the attack. "Emma, get out of there!" Jake shouted over the communications channel. "Already gone," Emma's voice came back. "Escape pod launched. Finish this." "Morrison." The Liberty crossed into 300 meters. "Now, Sophie," Jake yelled. Sophie activated the disruptor. The device hummed with power, then released a pulse of energy that washed over the Eternal Throne. For the first time in the battle, the flagship's shields flickered and failed completely. "All ships, fire everything," Admiral Torres broadcast. "We have 30 seconds. Make them count." Every remaining human ship fired at once. Missiles, railgun rounds, lasers, and everything else they had. The attacks hit the Eternal Throne's unprotected hull. Crystal structure cracked and shattered. Explosions blossomed across the massive ship. The Liberty fired its main railgun at point-blank range, targeting what looked like the ship's main power core. The round punched through the weakened hull and detonated inside. The Eternal Throne began to break apart from within. High Sovereign Calvex felt his ship dying beneath him. This was impossible. Gods did not fall to mortals. Gods did not bleed. But he was bleeding. His physical form was taking damage as the ship's systems failed. For the first time in thousands of years, Calvex felt genuine fear. He activated one final broadcast, his voice filled with disbelief and rage. "You cannot do this. We are eternal. We are divine. We are gods." Jake Morrison's voice cut through the channel. "No, you are not. You are just old and powerful and scared, and now you are dying. Remember that when the darkness takes you. Remember that humans did this." The Eternal Throne exploded. The blast was visible from Earth, a brief second sun that lit up the sky. Calvex died in the explosion, along with hundreds of Zalthor crew. The flagship that had terrified countless species across millions of years was gone, reduced to debris floating in orbit. The remaining Zalthor fleet immediately stopped fighting. Without their High Sovereign and their belief in their own superiority, they did not know what to do. Some ships fled into deep space. Others simply shut down and waited for instructions that would never come. The Liberty was crippled, but intact. Jake sat in his damaged chair, breathing hard. They had actually done it. They had killed a god. Over the next hours, the scope of humanity's victory became clear. The Zalthor Empire was collapsing everywhere. Species they had oppressed for generations rose up in rebellion. Without Calvex's leadership and the illusion of invincibility, the Zalthor could not maintain control. On Earth, people poured into the streets and celebrated. They cried and laughed and hugged strangers. They had been slaves for 18 months. Now they were free again. Jake's Liberty was towed back to Earth orbit for repairs. When he finally made it home, his daughter was waiting for him. She ran into his arms, and Jake held her tight. He had fought gods and survived. But this moment, holding his child, was better than any victory. Lisa Chang was given the task of negotiating with the remaining Zalthor. Many had surrendered. Others, like Zalvor had been, were ashamed of what their species had become. They asked for mercy and a chance to atone. "We will not destroy you," Lisa told them, "but you will face justice for what you have done, and you will help us rebuild what you tried to break." Some Zalthor accepted these terms. Others fled into deep space, perhaps to rebuild their empire elsewhere. Humanity would watch for them. The lesson had been learned. Trust, but verify. And never, ever stop being ready to fight. Admiral Torres retired for real this time, his job complete. Emma Price recovered from her injuries and became the head of Earth's reconstructed military. Sophie Martinez continued developing new technologies, but with strict ethical guidelines. Humanity would use what they had learned from the Zalthor, but they would not become like them. Jake Morrison became an ambassador. 1 year after the battle, he stood on the bridge of a new ship, meeting representatives from the Kalari, a species that had also suffered under Zalthor rule. The Kalari were nervous, unsure what to expect from humans. "We heard what you did to the Zalthor," the Kalari diplomat said. "We heard you destroyed their greatest ship and killed their high sovereign. Should we fear you as we feared them?" Jake shook his head. "No. We fight when we must, but we do not conquer. We do not demand worship. We believe in freedom for ourselves and for others. The Zalthor called themselves gods. We proved that gods who demand submission do not deserve it." The Kalari diplomat considered this, then extended a hand in a gesture of peace. Jake took it. A new alliance was born, one based on mutual respect instead of fear. Later, Lisa found Jake looking at the stars from an observation deck. "Thinking about the battle?" she asked. "Thinking about Zalvor," Jake admitted. "He helped us win. He betrayed his entire species to give us a chance. I wish he could have lived to see what came after." "Maybe he can," Lisa said quietly. "We recovered some Zalthor databases from the Eternal Throne's wreckage. We found personal logs from many of the crew." She handed Jake a datapad. "These are Zalvor's logs, his thoughts and feelings over thousands of years. He wanted someone to know that not all Zalthor chose this path. He wanted to be remembered as something other than a monster." Jake read the logs. They told the story of a being who had watched his people become the very thing they once fought against. Zalvor had felt trapped in a civilization that had lost its soul. He could not save his own people, but he could save someone else. "We will remember him," Jake promised. "We will build a memorial for all who fought for freedom, human and Zalthor alike." Years passed. Earth rebuilt and grew stronger. Humanity joined a community of free species, all working together without gods to rule them. The scars of the Zalthor occupation faded, but the lessons remained. And somewhere in deep space, scattered Zalthor survivors told stories about the species that had beaten them. They spoke of humans with fear, respect, and something else. Hope that maybe, someday, their own people could rediscover what they had lost. The ability to be mortal, to struggle, to grow, and to choose their own path. The gods had fallen, and in their place, something better had emerged. Not perfection, but possibility. Not divine rule, but freedom. And that was enough.